the quiet rural town of Black Hollow, a place surrounded by dead forests and abandoned barns, people whispered about something they called the shadow that follows. Most dismissed the stories as old superstition, but everything changed for Daniel. Toward the night he returned to his late grandmother's house. The moment he stepped onto the dusty porch, the air felt colder, as if the house had been waiting for him. Inside, the smell of mold and something metallic filled the air. Daniel turned on his flashlight, but the beam flickered nervously, stretching along the hallway lined with old portraits. Every face in those portraits looked slightly turned as if watching him. He shrugged it off and walked deeper inside, trying to convince himself it was only his imagination. But then the floorboards behind him creaked, slow, heavy, deliberate footsteps. Daniel froze. He turned around expecting to see an animal, but the hallway was empty. Only the portraits stared back at him. He kept walking, but the footsteps continued, matching his pace, always 2 steps behind. His heart pounded as the air around him thickened, heavy like invisible hands pressing against his chest. When he reached his grandmother's bedroom, he noticed something written on the mirror in long rusty streaks. "You came back." His breath caught. Suddenly the door behind him slammed, shut with a force that shook dust from the ceiling. Daniel spun around as the temperature dropped so sharply his breath turned white. Something moved in the corner, a tall, twisted shadow with no face, only hollow darkness. It leaned forward, stretching unnaturally long arms across the room as if reaching for him. Daniel stumbled backward, but the shadow moved faster, its form sliding across the floor like spilled ink. Just before it touched him, the lights went out completely, and a whisper slid into his ear, cold, jagged and full of hunger. "I never left." Darkness swallowed the room as Daniel struggled to breathe, his hands searching blindly for the doorknob. The whispering grew louder, surrounding him from every corner of the house, echoing his name with a chilling mockery. When the light suddenly flickered back on, the shadow was gone, but the mirror now reflected something impossible. Daniel stared in horror. His reflection was smiling, a wide, unnatural grin stretching ear to ear, though his real face remained frozen in terror. Then the reflection lifted its hand and pointed behind him. Slowly, trembling, Daniel turned. The shadow towered over him, its hand resting on his shoulder, cold as grave soil. Before he could scream, the thing pulled him backward into the darkness of the hallway, dragging him past the portraits whose eyes now bled dark tears. Daniel clawed at the walls, leaving long scratches, but the house seemed alive, sucking him deeper. When he reached the basement door, it swung open by itself, revealing a staircase that descended into pitch black. A voice rose from below, his grandmother's voice, but distorted, broken as if spoken through a torn throat. "Come home, Daniel." Against his will, his legs began to move. The shadow forced him down step by step until the basement swallowed him. Down there, the air reeked of rot and something old, older than the house, older than any living memory. In the center of the basement sat a wooden chair facing the wall. On the wall, in giant letters carved with fingernails, were the words, "He belongs to the shadow." Daniel tried to run, but invisible arms gripped him, holding him to the chair. The shadow wrapped around him like a suffocating blanket, sinking into his skin, into his bones. The last thing Daniel heard was the creaking of the house as it settled, almost like a satisfied sigh. Weeks later, when the sheriff finally investigated the property, he found the house empty. No sign of Daniel. But on the mirror upstairs, fresh and wet like newly drawn blood, was a message. "Another one will return.